All right, on to the next box. So I'm going to try to build on what I learned in the first box by building sort of something similar using the mitered corners with the splines, but I'm going to make it from thinner wood, and just to sort of add a little bit of extra learning to it, I'm going to put a lid on the box and then probably cut it open on the bandsaw back there. I've tried using or having lids on boxes before, and I've cut them open using the table saw with limited success. I ended up with like a step on the corners, which I didn't really care for at all. Since then, I've noticed on YouTube that a lot of people use the bandsaw for cutting the top off for exactly that reason. So I'm going to try that. So I have this piece from the stock that I cut earlier. I'm going to rip this down, resaw it down so it's thinner, probably closer to 1/4 inch rather than 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to make the box itself a little bit bigger square and shorter, lower, like less tall, shorter is the word I'm looking for. So we're going to start on the bandsaw, resawing this down, and then we'll just start moving through the different steps. Here we go again. So, I'm not sure this is going to show up on camera, but I made a stupid mistake and I didn't check to make sure that the fence was square to the blade. So, my lovely piece of wood is narrower here and wider up there. So I'm going to have to take it into the planer and plane it all down to one even thickness. Another mistake. So I planed it down. I didn't clean it off completely to the edge because then that was going to make the wood too thin. But there's enough in here for the box that I want to make. I have enough space between the snipe at the one end and the snipe at the other end to get out the 4 pieces for the box that I want to make, and I can still get the width that I want out of the center of the board. But man, I wish I'd noticed that before, because I'm going to end up wasting a good chunk of this board. But we'll make it work. So now I'm going to cut it down. So I have my 4 pieces with the 45-degree miters on the ends, and I've also put a rabbet in the bottom of each one, so I can glue in a bottom. So now we're going to just glue up the box. Now some of the miters, like if you hold it side by side, it looks a bit rough, but the miter itself looks like it's going to be pretty sharp, so I think it's just sort of some rough wood at the top. Again, we'll find out. Now we let glue dry. So here, I should come in when the glue is still a little bit soft, and clean out these the squeeze out in the corners, because now I'm going to have to chisel that out, I think. I got most of it out, but I kind of messed the wood up in the corners here. Another lesson learned. I got to clean up a little bit more, like in this joint here, but that's good enough for now. The miters themselves sort of look alright. So I'm going to put a top on here, and a bottom. I'll embed a bottom here again, and then I will work on the splines. So I've taken that narrower piece that I had left over after I resawed the board, and I ran it through the planer again, hot glued to some hardboard, and I was able to sort of get it nice and flat. And I'm going to use this for the bottom. And so I'm just sort of dialing in the exact width that I need, and then I'll rip it down on the table saw. I also have an even thinner piece from that same leftover chunk, and I'm going to use this for the top. So I have my top and bottom cut. The bottom just sort of nicely sits in there. And the top is slightly oversized, so I can smooth it out later once it's all sort of glued together. So now I'm going to spend some time sanding the top so that the top piece of wood fits nice and flat, and then I'll spend some time sanding the inside to remove all the marks I made with the chisel when I was trying to remove the blue tape. Okay, so now we're going to glue the bottom and the top on. Actually, first I'm going to put the blue tape again on the inside. Now the glue and the brush. Looks pretty good. I got a couple blobs of glue. Not too bad. Okay, so now I'm going to flush up the lid at the top. Man, this feels nice and light. I'm very pleased with the weight of this so far. So now the top is nice and flush. Pretty pleased with that. The box is looking not bad. I did make one mistake. Of course, that's the whole point of this, I guess, is learning from my mistakes. But when I was trying to sand it down on one side, I held it too long on the saw, so I've got a little bit of indentation here that I have to take care of from the belt sander. But otherwise, I think it's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to set up for the splines. So I've marked up the box where I want to put the splines, and I've also marked where I'm going to put the lid. I tried to space them out so it would look fairly balanced. I've also put blue tape on all the corners, because I found with the last time I did the splines, I got some blowout doing this. No doubt because the gap in here is sort of growing over the times that I'm using it. So we'll set this up and run this through, and we'll see what we end up with. So my splines, or my slots turned out pretty well. Actually, putting that tape on really helped in terms of the blowout. I don't have any blowout. I'm not certain if they're quite deep enough, but I think they'll be fine for the purpose. So I cut some crabapple, some strips of crabapple to use as the splines. So I'm just going to cut up the little bits and get ready to glue them in. So that sanding worked out pretty well. Oh, I'm noticing a little edge here. But in some places I wasn't able to sand off all the glue with the belt sander, so that's a lesson too. So next time I'll try to remove more of that glue squeeze out when I'm doing the splines. But they all sanded down really flat. So I'm going to spend some time just sanding down the whole box, rounding over a bit of the edges, and then I'll cut it apart and see what the whole box looks like. Exciting! So I'm going to cut the lid off at 1 inch. So I'll set the bandsaw. Check this fella for squareness. It's square, as far as I can tell. That's square. Okay, let's see how close that is. Yep, okay. Here goes the big scary thing. Well, that was very fast. So here is the box, fresh off the bandsaw. It's got sort of like the typical bandsaw roughness here, but otherwise it looks pretty good. And now I've got to take all the tape from the inside, from the gluing. Let's see how that worked. And there's the lid. There's minimal glue squeeze out. Just a little bit that I have to take care of in there, so that's not so bad. Well, that turned out pretty well too. So I'm just gonna sand up the top, deal with these little bits of blue tape inside, give it a good sanding, and see where we are. I don't know, I'm putting it flat on the table, but I'm ending up with the corners being sanded deeper than the body of it. Not sure what I'm doing. Is it just because this is flexing? Okay, well, now I've seen a lot of other guys when they do this sanding, they glue it down to a piece of MDF or something. But I thought if I just clamp it down, it would be smooth enough. But I think the fact that it's sort of pulling up when I'm moving it around is causing the corners to get sanded more than the center. So I'm creating a little bit of a dip in each of the corners. So what I'm going to do is take some sandpaper and glue it to a piece of MDF and try it again. So here we are. I got 120 grit on one side and I've got 220 on the other side. I think it's making a bit of a difference. I think it's improving. Well, you know what? They're all even now, so maybe I just call that a design feature. Now I have to figure out how to hold the lid on the box. I bought these small hinges. I think I have a whole bag of them, but I'm kind of thinking for this, I'm thinking they're too small. So what I'm going to do, I think, I have this other piece of the thinner wood. I'm going to cut an insert for this that's just slightly proud, and then the lid can sort of like sit on the edge of that proud lip. So I crept up on the miters for each one on the 45-degree sled, and I'm pretty pleased with this. It's fitting really well, so I think that's going to going to work really quite perfectly. So I've marked the corners, and I'm going to pull these out again, and I'm going to put a one layer finish on the inside, because again I want to seal both sides of the wood, because I want to sort of see what's going to happen with the expansion and all that. And then I'll seal both sides of this, and then I will glue them in place inside the box, and then finish the whole thing as a unit. But look at that, getting somewhere. Cool. So here is the final box. I put 3 layers of the coating on the inside as well. It just needs the final buffing with the brown paper to sort of bring out the luster in it, which I'll finish with. But overall, I'm reasonably pleased with this. The miters turned out really well. I like how the splines turned out. None of them are blown out. All of them are seated properly in the bottom of their slots. I like this sort of interior piece of wood that holds the lid on. I think that worked really well. The only issue I've seen with it that I'll work on for next time is the corners being turned up slightly, and I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I don't know where that came from, but I'm going to keep an eye out for that. And I've just noticed too that when I was trying to sand out a little bit of the a raised area on the bottom here, I sanded it down to low in one corner here. So if you look at it closely, you can sort of see that it's not exactly square. But overall, I think it turned out pretty well. I'm happy with the thinner wood as well. I think it's a pretty good box. And so we'll put this one to good use and move on to the next one.